I don't think you need an introduction, but I'm going to introduce you. Everybody, this is Tracy Tutor. She is my, I would say, inspiration. I think about you as
sister from another mister.
Exactly.
My East Coast wife, work wife.
She's everything I wish I could be. I started with a trainer and I was like, if this makes me look like Tracy, this is going to be amazing.
You're so stupid.
So here we are. And the name of my show is Moms of Real Estate. And you, even though you look
like
you happen to also be a mom, and you're a great mom. And I feel like you have made some really awesome choices, and you have incredible daughters who are now like
16 and 14.
Yeah. Which you had them in your teens. Clearly.
Yeah, clearly, because I'm only 28.
I think you have an insanely awesome real estate career. Last time I saw you in person was in Dallas and I was watching you talk. I just saw Scott Durkin and I was like, I'm about to be on with Tracy. And he was like, tell her no swearing.
It's so bad. I know it's not one of my dad always says to me, you sound just like me. And I'm like, well, you could have raised me differently.
Well, here we are, and it's part of your brand and it's part of your personality. And I think that's what we wanted to talk about today, because I think a lot of us, especially moms, and even me, because of the fact that I think there's still so much momminess in my brand because my kids are younger, and that's kind of part of my life, is just that it's like I'm still in the insanity. And now you're in that next phase, and you've been able to do it in this like graceful, incredible way, and still be like this awesome, sexy, cool on TV, also doing so many other things. Your book is awesome, still awesome. I loved reading it. And I think what everybody would love to hear, especially moms, because that's who is listening to this amongst other people, is like, how did you still feel like you kept your mom identity while still having this incredible brand that I feel like is just really very badass and very strong and powerful as a woman?
It's so hard, I feel, to have little ones, particularly, I would say up until the age of like 8 or 9, even 10, and manage, a full-time real estate career and attempt to have some social life and giving back to yourself at the same time. From the time that my kids were little, I definitely took time off. I wasn't doing as much business and spent a lot of time, doing those mom things and showing up at school and navigating that. And I struggled the entire time, even as business started to pick up. And I remember having that guilt when they were younger of, being called to do the hospitality or be on the party book at school and host A, B, and C. And I remember doing all of it. And right around when Juliet was in the 3rd grade and then Scarlett was entering into K at the same school, I was like, oh my God, it's like round 2. And I went and I just sat across from the head of school at the time. And I said, I just can't do this. I cannot. Now I remember falling apart, like tears pouring down my face. And I didn't have really anyone to talk to, because most of the moms that were my closest friends were right up there and like leading the pack and being these incredible women, and even some of them working at the same time. And I just felt like I wasn't able to keep up and be the mom that, I was when they were a little bit younger. And I sat across from her, and she was this woman running the school. And she was like, enough, stop with the guilt, stop beating yourself up. You've put in enough time. Your kids see that you're working. And she sort of gave me permission in that meeting, to let go of that mom guilt that I think so many women have when they go back to work, or even if they're staying at home with their kids and not working, just have a life to take, a minute away and have adult conversation. And with that permission, I walked out the door, and I remember like literally shifting my entire mindset. And I'm like, if the head of school is giving me permission to not feel like this and to not feel like my participation on the, the school field or coming to, volleyball games after school it does not mean my kid's getting into the next school. I'm not doing anything that's providing any kind of service to my child. And when I walked out of there, I shrugged it off and I was like, I'm never going to do that again to myself, because it was difficult. And now they're in upper school, and arguably when they are in upper school, there is less parent involvement. But like, as I was walking in here to do this podcast with you, my nanny said, don't forget, you have parent school, parent night tonight. I'm like, my ex-husband, Jason, reminded me. I'm like, can't he go? Like, I'm exhausted. Like, like, when was the last time the dads went to like parent night, and so often it's just like that expectation is that we have to go. And I shrug that off now. And I remember when we were talking about this in Texas, a woman stood up and said, I'm tired of this like notion that we need to feel badly or we do actually feel bad because that's our environment that we're surrounded by. And for me, it was that meeting with that head of school who was a woman and understood it, and also was a mom and worked, and that permission really sort of shifted my entire narrative around, being a mom and being a working one. And then COVID happened, and having the girls at home and watching me really every day working just like they were working in their rooms on their laptops, going to Zoom school, they started to see what I was actually doing, and they became more involved in it. And I think that they became more proud of it. Like, my mom's this independent woman who has to pay the bills. And that's kind of the conversations I've been having with my kids since they were little. Like, mom's got to go to work. Like, I unfortunately don't get to stay at home. And I think by talking to them about that, it sort of has empowered them as well to be, I think, more independent in their education, in the decisions that they make for themselves. And so it makes me really happy to, see them now as like these little young women with opinions and things like that, and respecting women that have careers. I think it's an important lesson, particularly moving forward, with wage gaps and us trying to, put it out there and support female founders. These are things that I want my young girls to really understand. Sorry, that was like a long-winded answer.
Well, it was actually like a long, vague question. And I think that's the point, is to go where it should go, which is, I think that's a great story. And I love hearing about other women encouraging each other to forgive ourselves, because that's pretty much all we do, right? Is just beat ourselves up and really push ourselves harder when it's probably not the right thing to be doing most of the time, or sometimes it is. Do you feel like if one of your daughters wanted to be a real estate agent, you'd be like, come on?
Heck yeah. I actually had Juliet intern for me for a couple weeks this summer, and I just did not manage it. Like, I was like, I'm going to step out of this. And for the most part, but my director of operations, Cody, said, she's one of the best interns we have. Like, she was like, what's next? What can I get? Should I go pick up lunch? Let me help with the social media. And then, she has since come back and done like a little bit more with us, and is going to be on the show this season, sort of helping us door knock and, really kind of being a part of the agent piece of what we do, and less sort of the intern sort of, we treat you like scum until you earn your keep, right? Like,
that just happens naturally in the business anyway. So you don't need to create it.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I think that she's very charismatic. And I think, with what we do for a living, you have to have that, like that piece, that sort of, you can walk into a room and own it, and you can sell, ice to Eskimos. Like, the rest of it is just paperwork, right? And she has that. So we'll see what happens with it.
I think that's really awesome. That's something that I actually keep telling everybody. I'm like, my oldest daughter is totally going to do this, like 100%.
I mean, someone's got to take it over. I need to retire one of these days.
But also, you build this whole thing that actually, I mean, for me, even though I've been doing this since I was 25, I feel like when I really hit my stride is when I'm going to be like, hey, I'm ready for somebody else to do this. Because the 20, 30, 40 year mark is kind of when some of the really big stuff comes your way, right? Every
Right.
10 years or every 5 years, something insane happens where you're like, wow, that's a culmination of a relationship that lasted 10 years or 8 years or something I've been working on for a really long time. And I
Right.
actually think the legacy piece of it would be super cool because you've really built something that's big.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was so scared for so long to do that and to take like a little bit more of a chance. And I just always felt like I was right on the cusp of something, and I couldn't quite like get over that threshold. And I think so many of us struggle with like, how do we get from like selling $3 million condos or homes to like, I want to sell 10 million or 15 million or north of 20 million. And it's a lot of hard work, and there's a lot of competition. And 24 years later, every time it's like a new year, I'm like, God, we're approaching 25 years. Like, it is kind of crazy to think that I don't know if I've even really scratched the surface yet. But that's just me. Obviously, as much as I'm proud of what I've accomplished to date, I don't feel like I'm there yet. I feel like I'm not even halfway, right?
Well,
And but
you're
that's because I always want more, and it's just innately who I am.
you're also in a market that has this like exponential price point kind of zone. Not every
Right.
market has the like 100 $200 million price points whereas you're selling something in I don't know, in the middle of the Midwest, and that's probably not, you don't get to see that. So you've had exposure in general over your life to these higher price points because of lifestyle as well, right? So then
Right.
in addition to that, you continue to have your hands in that, which I actually think is actually pretty awesome. I think that's great that that's where you are, and that you're thinking like, hey, I want to be that woman that instead of doing $10 million homes, I'm doing 50 million or 60 million as my bread and
Oh
butter.
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, and the places that I get my inspiration from, and the people that have mentored me sort of through the years, I always surprise myself with my mentors. And I think that's such a big piece of like, you want to step out of your comfort zone with that, because it's not always the guy that sells the most or the woman that sells the most or has the biggest platform or the most followers or any of that. Like, it's the interesting one that you're like, God, they're quietly selling like a billion a year, and they don't even give a shit if it's posted, right? Like, I want to know what they're doing, because that to me is super interesting. I mean, one of my biggest mentors is an agent by the name of Drew Fenton, who also happens to be one of my best friends and is now opening his own company here. And he's 39 years old and quietly doing like over a billion a year. And he's like, he's like, why are you doing $5 million deals? Oh, and I'm like, I love you. I got to follow this. I got to see where you're going, because this is fabulous. But I think selecting those mentors that sort of inspire you and impress you in a not so obvious way is what sort of keeps me going and innovating and trying to come up with new ways to sort of put it out there.
But also, I think those kinds of mentors giving you the confidence and saying that they believe in you, that you can do that, and you see them in that place and they believe
Totally.
in you. I find that to be huge. That like makes me just feel like, oh wow, I really can do it if they think I
Right.
can.
Right. And just keep pushing. I mean, my daughters have been a big part of the inspiration behind me and supportive in me opening in Texas, and continuing to do the show and understanding now at their age, they really get it. They understand the marketing, you know, push and that whole train behind what gets this exposure out there, and then how you capitalize on that exposure, right? So I think having them sort of supporting me in that journey, and yours are little, and they'll come to sort of understand it a little bit more as they grow up, but having them sort of behind you going, mom's got to work late tonight, and she's got to go then talk to some people at a bank somewhere. I don't really know what she's doing, but like she's got to do it. And that's like it's just I think it's setting an example for them to be, obviously independently wealthy on, in their own right, and to work hard to earn their place in that world. But also I think, to look up to their mom in a different way, and also in a different, moms were the nurturing ones, right? Like this is traditionally how we're viewed. And to, make that definition of the nurturing role that we play as moms and open that up to be something bigger than just that is it's a huge deal. And like, you doing this podcast about moms in real estate and other women that are doing different podcasts and talking about this all the time, I think is a huge part of, us teaching our kids that this can be done differently. Right.
So remind me how old your daughters were when you were cast on $1 Million Listing LA.
So Scarlett and Juliet, let's see, Scarlett was going into the 3rd grade.
Right.
Or she was in 2nd grade going into 3rd, and Juliet was in 4th going into 5th.
Right.
So now, Juliet's a junior in college. High school, sorry. And, Scarlett's in the 8th grade.
Wow. So they went from those years of being younger and it probably being a little bit more like, hey, what you doing?
This a little overwhelming, right? Like cameras in the house. And I'm like, hey guys, we're going to have breakfast together today on camera. And they're like, what is happening? They're like, Mom, you don't make us eggs. And I go, yes, I do. I just stopped doing it 2 years ago because you refused to fucking eat them,
That's great.
But now it's like, we were shooting the other morning, like a day in the life thing, like more docu style where, I got cameras in my house at fucking 6:50 in the morning. Okay. Like rise and shine. It's early, and like the kids come down and like, what a shift. Like from me, like, forcing food in their mouth 4 or 5 years ago now, on the show, to them like making a latte. And I'm like, I tried to make it for you. And Juliet's like, I don't like the way you make it. And I'm like, forget it. I can't do this.
Listen, that's awesome that you actually get to watch a little bit of the progression from. I know that you didn't have them on for a little while, but I think it's amazing that you were able to. I actually think probably that was pretty cool that you got a couple of years there where they weren't on, and then now that they are on their own terms.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting though, because from, the dynamic of me being obviously a working mom and being the woman on the $1 Million Listing Los Angeles show, not having your kids on and being a woman in real estate and being, having them on for like a hot minute and then going through a divorce and having them not on, I all of a sudden was viewed coming into that 2nd season as being, I wasn't really well liked. I mean, I guess it's better on television to either be the villain or rather, I guess, them not being different. But I really struggled with that because so much of my life was my kids, but because we made a decision as a couple to keep them off of the show for the time being, I was villainized quite a bit.
Well, also just being a woman who is strong-willed, doing deals, going head to head with men in general. I think I get a lot of comments that are, you're like, even my husband's like, I think they kind of cut you like a little bitchier than you really are. And I was like, I don't know. I think that's just actually me. I think you just, when you see it in person, you feel like it's warmer because you know me. But when you see it on camera, there's more aggressive. It's just more aggressive. It's what it is.
Well, and also I feel like there's this growth that happens where you stop trying to do more than, I when I came onto the show, it was like, be a boss. You have to stand next to like these 3 guys. There hasn't been success with, women on this show. And you're going to need to be like level up. And I just remember thinking to myself, okay, like time to level up. But I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm like pretty confident. Like, I think we're good, but they kept asking for like a little bit more of that. And you're right. I think probably it exists. Like that's our story. They can only cut together what we give them. But on some level, I had that narrative in the back of my head that I needed to be more. And then all of a sudden, you kind of start to get a little bit more comfortable with it. And, now I'm like, I'm enough. And then my producer this season is a female that came from a very different show, not a real estate show. And she was like, you're way funnier and cooler and lighter and easier than you appear on the show. And I'd like to see more of that, this season. And so anytime I get in my head or feel like I'm in a negotiation and, I start to do that thing again, she's like, just do you. You're not doing you. And so I'm aware of that now. And so it's nice to be a little bit more relaxed in that environment.
Yeah. And you can own, you could own your success before, but now you can really own it. You own it. It's yours. You have your place. I think it's very easy in the first couple seasons of the show to feel like you don't know if they're going to bring you back. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if you want to come back.
I still don't know. Who the hell knows, right? But there's comfort in knowing that, you get to a certain place in your life and you're like, you know what, I'm enough. You're not going to tell me how to dress. You're not going to tell me I need to boss up. And that was not a reflection of Bravo in any shape or form. As a matter of fact, they encouraged me to not do that, but it was more on set and stuff with different, on-site producers, pushing you in that direction. And then of course you look like you're a bitch and you're like,
well,
I'm not.
A brand said this stuff.
Well, you're like, don't mess with me because I will come for you. But, but you don't want to be read anything other than what you actually are,
Yep, I do. Well, listen, you have been incredible. I think the idea here was getting the essence of what it takes. And I think you gave that to us and how it is to be a mom in your position. I think there's a lot of moms out there. They're like, wow, to be you, look as amazing as you look, be as funny as you are, be as successful as you are. You have a beautiful family and you're an inspiration to all of us. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, honey, you are, we're on the same page. I think we're both doing the same thing. I think there's a lot of moms out there doing what we're doing. And, everybody thinks getting into real estate is one of those things where, anyone can do it. And obviously you've glamorized it on a show. So have I. And there's other shows like Selling Sunset that are doing the same thing. And what people don't realize is the hours and the agony and the commission, going up and down the hill, consistently day after day and putting in sometimes 70 or 80-hour weeks is not for everyone, and it does take a village, but I have help and I have good people around me and I have really incredible supportive children. And so, I knock on wood that I wake up every day and get to do what I do. I never thought I'd make this kind of money. And, I was going to be an actor and a theater actor and they make no money. I don't know what I thought I was doing there, but
great decision. Well, Tracy Tutor folks, this is awesome. And thank you so much. I can't wait to see you. I'm coming to LA and I'm going to message you on dates.
Hit me up, babe. I love you. I'm so happy for you. So proud. So happy you're at our company now. And now I get to.
Yeah. And exactly. The other thing that keeps us ticking is the fact that we're at an incredible company, Douglas Elliman, both of us.
Yeah. So let's do some deals together.
I love it.
I love you. Bye, sweetheart.
Bye. Thanks for doing this.